the United States. John Kerry, Barack Obama, listen to your people. War is not the answer. War has never been the answer. The governments of France, of Canada, of the United States don't care a whit about the people of Syria. It is their own economic and political interests that are guiding them, and we have to show the breadth and the strength of this global movement saying we refuse to accept an attack on Syria. It is not in the interest of the Syrian people, and it's not in the interest of people in the United States, Canada, or anywhere else in the world. And I want to mention, today in this crowd, we have resistors who came up, who decided that they would not fight in the Vietnam War that the U.S. put forward. We have resistors here who said they would not fight in the Iraq War, and we applaud them for their courage. They are standing with us today, and we ask the government of Canada to give them refuge in this country. So we stand with you, brothers and sisters. We will do all we can to stop any attack on the people of Syria. Thank you very much.
Hands up Syria, U.S. NATO. Hands up Syria, U.S. NATO. Hands up Syria.
U.S. NATO. Hands up Syria. U.S. NATO. Hands up Syria.
Thank you, Carolyn, for those words. We're almost at the end of the program before we can do some more chanting and wrap up the demonstration. But before we hear from our final speaker, I also wanted to make a statement of solidarity in support of John Grayson and Tarek Ubani, who are two Canadian citizens who have been detained in Egypt for more than 3 weeks now. And there's a campaign that all of us here need to be a part of. The Toronto Coalition Stop the War, the Canadian Peace Alliance, and dozens of organizations across this country, indeed around the world, and literally tens of thousands of people are calling for the immediate release, the safe and immediate release of Tarek Ubani and John Grayson. And just so you know, John Grayson is a York University film professor, a leading activist in the BDS movement here in Toronto and across the country, breaking the siege of Gaza. And Tarek Ubani is a London-based physician who's been organizing solidarity and training Palestinian doctors in emergency room surgery. And they were actually en route to Gaza when they were detained and held in Cairo. And so we encourage all of you to look up TarekandJohn.com online to find out what you can do to put pressure on the Egyptian embassy in Ottawa and the consul in Montreal to demand that they be released. And there will be a meeting happening with the prosecutor in Cairo on Monday or Tuesday, and we need to continue flooding the diplomatic offices with messages of solidarity saying we are watching and we want them released. They're allies in the struggle for peace and justice for Palestinians and for all oppressed people. So the Toronto Coalition Stop the War wants to express the solidarity with John and Tarek and the call for the release. Our final speaker is the National Coordinator of the Canadian Peace Alliance, who called today's Pan-Canadian Day of Action. As I mentioned, there are 15 demonstrations right across the country that we know of that are happening. Please join with me in welcoming Sid Lacombe on behalf of the Canadian Peace Alliance.
Thank you very much, sisters and brothers, for coming out here today. As James just mentioned, there's demonstrations happening all across the country over the course of this weekend. There was a fantastic demonstration last night when 50 people surrounded Rob Nicholson's office in Niagara Falls. He's the defense minister here in Canada, demanding that he say no to a war on Syria. There's demonstrations happening over the course of the next couple of days in Vancouver, Victoria, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Regina, Halifax, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Hamilton, and all across the country where Canadians are standing up and saying, we do not want your bloody war. There are those who are asking us why it is that we're still marching in Canada, even though Stephen Harper has announced that there will not be a Canadian military component to an attack on Syria. We've heard this before, however, from Stephen Harper. This is a man who has lied to us a dozen times over the course of his reign in Canada around specific issues around war. 4 times he said that Canada would not extend the mission in Afghanistan, and 4 times he lied, he turned around, and he sent more Canadian troops into Afghanistan to oppress and to occupy the people there. We are also standing here, so we do not trust Stephen Harper when he says that he's not going to contribute militarily to the war on Syria. We know that this is a government that wanted to go to war in Iraq, despite the fact that the entire world knew that it was a war based on a pack of lies, but he wanted to support it. And he is now providing political support to the Obama government, the Obama administration, to support their drive to bomb Syria. We're also standing here across from the U.S. consulate, as we know, to highlight the fact that the biggest terrorist in the world today is the United States of America, is the U.S. government. And they are the people who are going to kill innocent Syrians, they say, in retaliation for killing. What a bizarre logic. They're saying that they're so appalled by the killing of civilians that they want to kill masses of civilians. This makes no sense whatsoever, but it is the logic of the U.S. government, successive U.S. governments, and we need to stand up and stand in opposition. It is absolutely ridiculous that they think they are going to improve the situation for the Syrian people. They have 2,000 Tomahawk missiles based in the Mediterranean Sea and in areas around there, ready to be launched at Syria at any moment. You know who benefits from that? It's interesting. Raytheon benefits from that. Raytheon is the corporation that makes the cruise missiles. Their stock prices have spiked by 20% over the course of the last couple of weeks because they figure that those missiles are actually going to be used in Syria, which means the American government's going to have to buy more. They're making money off of this. They're the ones who want this to happen.
Shame, shame, USA! Shame, shame, USA! Shame, shame, USA! Shame, shame, USA! Shame, shame, USA!
And we don't have to look far. We do not have to look far into our collective past as a globe, as a world, and as a people to understand exactly what this alleged responsibility to protect actually represents. We can look at Libya. Remember Libya, there was announcements made that Gaddafi was about to kill civilians, and so what did the Western countries do? They developed what they called a no-fly zone that turned into a bombing zone, and they murdered 30,000 people. How it is that they think that is the best way to protect the civilian life in Libya is absurd. In Afghanistan, tens of thousands have been killed by more than a decade's worth of brutal occupation. The numbers in Iraq are almost unfathomable. Over the course of the past 20 years, the United States is responsible for murdering more than 1 million people in Iraq. And they have the gall to stand up and call anyone else a terrorist. That's the terrorists. That's why we're going to be out here today. That's why we're going to be out here every single time they decide they're going to launch that terror on the world. Sisters and brothers, we need you to be part of this movement. If you have not already discovered the Canadian Peace Alliance online, find our website, find our Facebook group, sign up so you can get the updates as this is progressing. We know that this is only the beginning of what the Western powers have in mind. The United States is looking at Syria because they want to attack as a stepping stone as well to another goal, which is eventually to attack Iran. This banner that is lined up in front here is a testament to exactly how brutal this government is. This banner marched with 80,000 people on February 15, 2003. At the time, it said, "Don't attack Iraq." 6 months ago, when it looked like they were going to launch the attack on Iran, we covered the Q with an N so that it says, "Don't attack Iran." This time around, we covered that last word and wrote in Syria. How many more times are we going to have to alter this banner before they stand up, and before we stand up around the world and they actually listen to their people? The people of the United States don't want this attack. The people of the UK don't want this attack. The people of Canada do not want this attack. So we're going to stand here and we're going to make sure that they hear loud and clear. 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want your bloody war.
1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want your bloody war.
5, 6, 7, 8. Stop the killing. Stop the hate.
5, 6, 7, 8. Stop the killing. Stop the hate.
Thank you very much, sisters and brothers. Keep looking at the Canadian Peace Alliance material. Come out to the next rallies. Unfortunately, we may have to be out here again. Talk to you soon. Thanks, sisters and brothers.
Healthcare, childcare, anything but warfare. Healthcare, childcare,
Anything but warfare.
healthcare, childcare,
Anything but warfare.
healthcare, childcare, anything but warfare.
All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to do a little bit of chanting before we conclude the demonstration and disperse, but I just want to echo the words of Sid, who just spoke now, saying that we have to continue building the networks that we've been building for the last 10 or 12 years. It's a sad thing that we have to continue building these networks, but it's something that we have to do. And what's important is that we have built an infrastructure. We have built a network of activists who have been active for a long time, but there are also many more people always getting involved, and that's the key thing. We have to think about who are the thousands of people we know who are not here today, but who agree with us. They don't want to see a war against Syria, but they don't necessarily feel confident to come to a demonstration. And so the task that we have to take away today is to think about how are we having the conversation that we had here today amongst ourselves, among several hundred people. How are we going to take this message of solidarity and of peace and of opposing war and of supporting justice and dignity for the people of Syria? How are we going to take these conversations to the people we work with, our friends and our family members, and think about how we're going to bring them into these coalitions and how we can support those struggles? So I'd encourage you, all of you, to look up online the Canadian Peace Alliance, to find it on Facebook, to like it, to share it, to make sure that we're all connected, and to make sure that we're building a permanent network for peace and justice so that when we have to mobilize again, we're prepared, we're more organized, and that we can actually stop the warmongers from prosecuting more wars. Now, brothers and sisters, we're going to conclude by thanking all of you for your generosity, for coming out on such short notice. What we thought we would do to wrap up the demonstrations, maybe for 10 or 15 minutes or longer if you want to do it, we would take the sizable crowd that we have here and move to the sidewalk just on the west edge of this square and stretch out as long as we can along the edge of University Avenue with our placards, with our signs, with our banners. And we want to do some chanting because there's lots of traffic that's going to be going by. We want to maybe move in a picket and do some chanting so the people can move to the west side, move out to the sidewalk before we disperse. We're going to do a little bit of chanting, and then we can wrap up the demonstration.